Now we're going to talk about the strategic planning process. When we have long-term plans, it's easy to lose track. Well, sometimes those long-term plans require us to do things in the short term and the medium term in order to get there. How do we keep track of these things, map them back to individual tasks, and understand where we're going as an organization? Many times, the strategic planning process starts with someone saying, we need to get serious about strategy. They call everybody into the room, get out the sticky notes, and they come up with a bunch of things that they want to do. One lucky person gets to be the note taker, and they put all that stuff onto an Excel spreadsheet, which they then distribute to a bunch of people, each one of which is expected to take care of their tasks, and later, they all get back together again in that same conference room, and they talk about how it's going. Everybody's focusing on this wonderful strategic planning process, but over time, interest wanes, things get disorganized. The shape of the curve might be different for different companies or people, but usually you end up around the same place eventually, at which point somebody says, we need to get serious about strategy. And over time, the company does this. Well, you have to be thinking, how can we make this stick? With Stemmons Central, we can do that. It starts with defining the structure of the strategic planning process. One of the first things we do is define the mission. That's kind of a long-term mission that's not going to change very frequently. The next thing we would add is one high-level goal, more specific than the mission. Underneath the high-level goal are mid-level goals, and finally specific tasks that represent the highest level of specificity. In a structure like this, every single thing that we do relates to a clearly defined mid-level goal and mapped to a high-level goal supporting a particular mission. Now, of course, we don't have just one high-level goal. We have as many as 5 to 7 for each mission. Also, you can see we've added some metrics here to determine whether a high-level goal was being met. This structure could be used either for a company overall or for a particular department. Let's look at how this would map to Stemmons Central. We would want to create an entity type for mission, and another called high-level goal, another one called mid-level goal, and finally metric. There would be a one-to-many relationship between mission and high-level goal, and same again for high-level goal and mid-level goal. Also, each high-level goal would relate to the metrics. Finally, these action items would actually wind up as a case type. We might call them roadmap item. So let's think about what happens if we have this organized this way. All of these action items come tagged with information including mid-level goal, which of course gives us its high-level goal and its mission, or better yet, its department. Because of that, we can create any view of this that we want. The department head might want to do the format that we just looked at, but it would also be interesting to see the roadmap by time, because remember, in addition to this general metadata, we would have due date, status, assigned to, last updated, and so on. These metadata items associated with this case will be very useful for reporting. So, we can look at them by time. We might want to look at how the different people in our department are doing with the roadmap tasks that are assigned to them. We might want to look at how we're doing in each high-level goal. Graphs in there, and basically look at these any way that we want. Don't forget that these individuals are also going to want to see their tasks, and they have some options as well. They could have just their roadmap, or they could be mixed in so they could see them as they're doing their normal work. This tremendous flexibility changes the nature of strategic planning, even for someone in a particular department. But don't forget, that department might have their own strategic roadmap, but they're not the only one. This kind of strategic planning process can be replicated in exactly the same way by a lot of different people within the company. And as a result, each one of them is working the same way with their strategic plan. But at the same time, we can take a look at the entire thing from a global view of our strategic projects across the entire company, even cutting across different departments. Of course, we could look at individual departments, but we could also look at the roadmap items this quarter for all departments. We could look at things like what's in process, what percentage of completion do we have, what's past due. And this gives us one comprehensive strategy in the company all the way down to the individual tasks. Now, we'll have to save talking about the metrics for another time, but the quick version is we would have a bunch of reports to help us understand whether or not we were actually accomplishing what we were after. Something very interesting happens though when you line up a company's strategic plans like this on a department by department basis. You start finding the same things repeated between different departments. For example, a concept like customer satisfaction or experience, or maybe use of data and analytics. These things kind of emerge naturally, but it's a real phenomenon, and it leads to another very interesting question. How can we encourage these departments to work together on these topics that are of interest to all of them? Well, not surprisingly, Stemmons Central has a way of dealing with that as well. We call it a Center of Excellence, but we're going to cover that in a separate video.